So, with the recent dialogue that's been going around with the new Flame Toys Furai model kit of Windblade, there's been a lot of stuff being said all over the place on social media, on all the different forums, and I figured, my opinion doesn't matter. So I figured I'd get the opinion of someone from the other side of the coin in the Transformers fandom. And she's someone that's been in the fandom for many years, many, many years, more than a decade. And I figured I'd get her take on all of this and what she thinks about it. Now, I don't know what name you're going to want to go by. I know they had many, many screen names back in the day, but first introduce yourself.
All right. So, everyone, I'm Chris or Christina. You've probably seen me a lot at TFCon or in Anime North. And yeah, like Daniel said, I've been in the fandom since early as 2005 when Beast Wars was airing on YTV at its second or third syndication. And it gave a little boom for me and just did some vast research during high school. Went to my first TFCon at 2008. And pretty much the rest is history. I still go to those TFCons.
Still to this day. So essentially, to just emphasize that Christina here is not like, a fly-by-night fan. She's someone that's been in the fandom for a very long time. And the fandom has changed a lot since 2005 to today. So she's seen the changes. She knows the social changes and everything like that. So it's someone that I wanted to bring in that is a educated opinion from the other side of the spectrum, not some white dude, male, chauvinistic Transformer fan. We'll get the other side of the coin, the female fan, also a girl of color too, if you want to even go that direction if you want to. But just someone that has a different take. And let me know, again, what do you think of what's going on with this Furai model kit Windblade?
Now, essentially, we all know that for the Fry model kits have been very good, and they've been showing a lot of good quality work engineering wise. And the first time I saw the Windblade this morning, first off, the first thing I saw was the engineering and of course the parts and everything. Also, having conversations with other people. Um, One thing is that unfortunately prototypes, and I've been collecting other stuff too, and I would like to bring up an example that's similar to this situation. Uh, the Medicos' JoJo's Bizarre Adventure figures, and there are lots of prototypes, and a lot of these characters are very muscular, very detailed in the prototype form. The resin, you see everything, right down to the muscles, right down to the lines of the lines detailing their clothing and everything, and it looks pretty hypersexualized until it starts being
Well,
painted.
and JoJo is something that if you're a woman looking for hypersexualized men, quite a good place to start, I would imagine too.
Exactly.
So but yeah, continue.
So again, a lot of people, they're seeing all the details, and Windblade, of course, very detailed, very feminine, very hypersexualized, and it has been causing a lot of dialogue, both good and both bad. And one thing to note is we've seen these drawings, at least three versions of it last year, so
Mm-hmm.
we have an idea of what this was going to look like initially. And I remember when those sketches were released last year, there was a bit of an uproar about it. And now people seem to have forgotten about it. And now that it's come back, it's the prototype images are here and everyone is still in an uproar. And it's the conversation is still going right now. The thing is that learning the history of Transformers, and especially with its female characters, I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but the designs for female Transformers and sexuality kind of go hand in hand. And I'm going to say a couple of examples. I know that with an interview with Fleur O'Deary, he admitted that when he was designing RC, he based it off of Princess Leia, particularly the slave Leia from Return of the Jedi. But the only difference he added was that it was going to be the hair buns from A New Hope. Another
Mm-hmm.
example is Beast Wars Black Arachnia. Gavin Blair, Phil Mitchell, and all the other guys in Mainframe frequently went to a strip bar in downtown Vancouver between their animations between animation, and they actually made most, if not all, of their female characters based on the strippers that they've known and befriended. They were modeled after them. I know for a fact that Beast Wars Black Arachnia was modeled after one of their favorite Asian strippers.
And the argument that could be given is that, well, that was a different time, which again, that is very much so. You know, Flair O'Deary designing RC back in, I would assume probably 1984, 1985. Different time, different culture. The same could be said of Black Arachnia, at the height of the Jim Lee, artistic 90s boom of art. You could also kind of give that argument. You're talking an era of like, Pamela Anderson and stuff like that, the Silicon era, if you will, on the other side of the coin. You could argue that it was a different era. So how would one approach this kind of argument then when it comes to, say, this here, where this is it's a 2020 product. I have my own opinions, but I'm just more curious yours here. Like how would someone say approach this? Like what is the reasoning behind it, would you say?
It all narrows down to model kits in general, and in fact, Japanese culture and Japanese toy lines. We were at, last week, we were looking at all these pictures at Wonderfest. I have been posting all over the place on Twitter, on Discord, on all types of social media on it. Majority of the toys being displayed in resin, in prototype, in sketch, in announcements, and in final product, majority of them are all scantily clad, very sexualized female figures and statues. And the thing is that is a prevalent and very strong market, especially in the Japanese community, in your anime, in your video games, and in model kits.
The argument that I could also give, too, is that every franchise kind of has their version of that in the modern age today. I know that if you look at, let's say, the G.I. Joe brand, they have their, I think it's called the Bishoujo line.
The Bishoujo line. And even so, the Bishoujo line, and I like that you got into that because with the Bishoujo line, they've touched on, yes, G.I. Joe. They've touched on a lot of like other anime products, and even they touched on My Little Pony. And
yes,
it's completely different. It's completely different designs from the Equestria Girls line. I know that some fans were not okay with the Bishoujo line for My Little Pony, but in my personal opinion, I think they looked very decent. They didn't look too sexy, so it was a very best of both worlds situation, in my opinion. Well, so with model.
And I just wanted, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to also ask, because like when it comes to stuff like this, I think that the biggest problem that a lot of people need to understand is that it's the market that is, like there's certain Transformer product that's created where Japan is the market first, and then we literally are an afterthought market. Like the fact that we even got a masterpiece Black Arachnia in the time that we did get it in, as opposed to say, why didn't we get Rhinox first or others? I firmly believe, personally me, and I've said it in past podcasts, that the choice to take Black Arachnia was because, number one, Masterpiece is a Japanese market, and if you were going to pick a female Predacon, a Predacon character in general, or even another character, there's almost a sure bet with that market. The Japanese market, they have a different outlook when it comes to sexuality and depiction of women. They don't see it as a negative. They believe that, there is women that exist that do have those body types, which is fact, that does exist. And it all falls into the realm of, well, it's fantasy. And people want to have, in their fantasy, they want to have depictions of stuff that could be considered an ideal in their mind. And I've always, for me personally, and I didn't touch on it on my take of this, but I know that, many times I look at Transformer characters and I ask myself, I wonder what a female fan would deem sexy in a male character. I know many times I've always been like, oh man, like I think this Rodimus character looks sexy, or this toy looks sexy, or this looks great, but what is truly deemed sexually attractive for a female of a male Transformer character? And if so, whatever those things are those things present in the current products of official manner?
I would like to say in some degree, yes. Again, it's not like, and the thing is with um with the perception of female art, female beauty, and female sexuality, especially when a man, a heterosexual man, I will clarify that,
Mm.
and they have a good idea of like what it looks like. While the same heterosexual man, when he creates like the male prototype of like any figure or any transformer, for example, I know that there are certain certain male attributes like a large chest or a muscular or a muscular torso. It's very subtle, but it does appear. And like you said, that the female gaze towards what a man looks like is very subjective, pretty much in the same vein of like what the male gaze of a woman is very subjective. Unfortunately, with the whole thing with Windblade, is that I know that a lot of people are arguing about that the character should not be sexualized. There are two things I would like to point out. One, the creation of Windblade is based off of the geisha, which is a Japanese courtesan. And I know that there are certain ways of like the geisha lifestyle, but if you really narrow it down to its bare bones, they were escorts. They were very aristocratic escorts. And of course, they also, especially in Japanese art, especially in Japanese art, Japanese media, they are also very considered to be very beautiful, very elegant women. And the second thing, looking at the initial designs of Windblade, I know that there are very different interpretations. I know that Sarah Stone's version is a very, very popular interpretation, and I find it in of itself very beautiful. Now, one thing I would like to ask the fans who are arguing about this, I know that they are shocked and I would say enraged over the fact that Windblade, who is a very strong, very smart, very incredible character, and very strong, well, of course, very strong as well, if I haven't said it already. I don't understand why it is wrong to put those positive attributes, especially for a female character, but cannot make it sexy. That to me, I just have very little understanding of, because to me, if you have a female character in any sort of media, if she is beautiful, if she is strong, if she is smart, if she is independent, wouldn't that be something for a lot of women and girls to look up to? And for our fandom, and I really don't want to say this, but I'm going to say this. If the Windblade character was not sexualized in this model kit, would people actually have bought this?
Well, especially the market that I find that it's initially created for. I think that it's in the same way that, and I hate to admit it myself, like, who do you remember more of the female characters of Beast Wars, Black Arachnia or Airazor, regardless of screen time? You know what I mean? Like, it's something that people like, stuff that pops out. People like stuff that's dynamic. People like stuff that has angular edges or whatever it is, or curves. It's, you think of famous artists and what they were known for, whether it be a Jim Lee of X-Men or Rob Liefeld of X-Force and later on Deadpool. There's just something about exaggerating and or accentuating reality and stuff that like the reality, especially when it comes to me, is that I feel that real life is boring. You know what I mean? There's a reason why we
Exactly.
obsess. There's a reason why we obsess over this fictional story of a 4 million year long civil war of robots, is that real life could be boring sometimes, and we like the stuff that's not just, the same old. And when it comes to Transformer characters, and again, I touched on this in my standalone segment of this, but even characters like Rodimus has had different body interpretations throughout the years, whether it be skinny, whether it be bulky, up, barrel chest, small chest, he popped collar, all kinds of different, looks that he had. And I'm pretty sure, I guarantee it, at some point, some girl thought he was good looking. In the same way that I'm pretty sure there was a lot of girls, and I know this for a fact, that looked at Prime Starscream and thought he was good looking. There was something about his skinny design. Again, the debate of what is considered sexually attractive to each individual in it itself is already subjective. So that's something that it's almost like the what is considered attractive to men, we got that pretty pat down and understood, but yet we never really get it pretty pat down what women find attractive. And if, again, does that exist in any current Transformer characters? But it's something to me personally that what I see with this Windblade character is Japan doing what Japan has always done when it comes to product, is that and they know what sells. They know what sells. Everything is about market research and audiences and groups, and it's just they know that the majority of the people who, number one, build model kits, probably a primarily male audience. I'm going to take a guess here, probably a primary male audience, and if they're going to make a female character, they want to appeal to that primary male audience. And the counter argument, of course, is always going to be, well, you're forgetting about the female audience. But did we really? With the thousands of other male characters? I mean, I'm going to say this right now. That Hot Rod, that IDW Hot Rod, pretty sexy if you ask me. And that's coming from me.
I will have to agree with you. I remember that back when I was very ocean deep into the female fandom when Animated was airing. Tons of fan art of Rodimus in from very good looking art to the absolute oh my god, what is he doing? This is really sexy. And
but on top of that, the way that his body is drawn, you're using the Animated example done by Derek Wyatt, barrel chest, small waist, skinny legs, could be like skinny jeans, popped collar, it's that whole design of here's this guy that is the cock of the walk, you know what I mean? And it's just the way that I see it is there is Transformer characters that also depict that kind of stuff. The problem is, I guess it's just more subjective on the other side of the coin. And it's to me, again, and I hate to say to me because it's totally selfish, but it's like at the end of the day, we're all just having a good time here. We're all just trying to have fun. And it's not like this is the only piece of Windblade merchandise that exists.
Exactly. I'm happy that there is a Furai Windblade. That means that if she does sell, there will be more female characters. Unfortunately, they're going to be sexualized in a way, but that's how it is. You have to remind people that this is a culture, this is a different market, and this is the reality that the culture of Japan, in terms of their in terms of collecting, in terms of model building, in terms of how they interpret their characters in media, is completely different with the North American audience. And with North American media, I'm glad that there is a changing effect going on. That is a positive thing. However, you cannot ostracize something for the sake of change.
Well, especially you brought up JoJo before, right?
Exactly.
And JoJo has an audience that is also very heavily male, but also very heavily female. And anyone who's watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, collect figures of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, very muscular, very sexualized, the poses, it's all about almost like, I guess an ideal man, and the women eat it up, do they not? They eat it up, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, and for all of you who don't watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or hasn't read it or hasn't even played the games, the funny part about this, actually, one of the greatest things that stands out, no pun intended, from this series is that a lot of these characters are wildly posed in the most dynamic ways, and they're all based on very famous modeling poses. And in the modeling world, which is a very heavily sexy yet artistic medium, I would say, and most of those characters, especially their famous poses, are based off of female models more so than male models.
Well, there you go. So it's just something that, again, I wanted to get your take on it too, because I feel that I could defend it as much as I want, but at the end of the day, what I'm born as is always going to be a net negative. So I have to put that aside and get another person's. I feel that I might have to bring more women onto the show just to have their take on it. But I mean, so far it seems like, at the end of the day, what is your final take on this Windblade?
I like it. I absolutely like it. I want Furai to make more, and also I'm kind of sad no one is paying attention to the Rodimus and the Optimus Primal, because my personal stances are that Rodimus looks amazing, Primal looks badass, 100%. And totally. I wish we were talking more about them.
But it's getting overshadowed by controversy. So thanks again for being on the show. Just wanted to kind of, again, get another take from everything. And if anyone wants to contact you, what's your social media information to give your take, if you will?
Oh, geez. You could, my Twitter is at TMII Wonko Nemi. And I will actually send you the actual spelling of the name after this.
I'll put it in the comments below if anyone wants to find her, to contact her, and give your 2 cents. But again, thank you for being on the show, and hopefully maybe we'll discuss this more in the future.